Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Deep Dives in the Desert. It's been a minute since we've been back together, but I'm really excited for today because I have a new lovely friend, Anthony Campos, who is joining us today. And I actually saw you on Instagram a few months back, and just the posts that I kept seeing, like how you kept talking about like standing in your sovereignty and, just kind of staying in just like your power and all of that, and everything just resonates so much. Definitely wanted you to come on the show and kind of tell us a little bit about you. So welcome.
Yeah, welcome to our
Thank you.
show. We're so happy to
Thank you
have
guys.
you here.
Yeah, and I mean, first thing that I noticed about you two is your mom and daughter, which is extremely rare. So I hope you guys understand how rare that is, because most of us, if we embark on this journey, a lot of people are alone and they feel a bit of loneliness, or they can't, they can't bring other family members on the journey. It takes time. I'm fortunate to have, my girlfriend, and I was able to meet some people in the community where we're on that same wavelength and we support one another. But there's also a polarity where it's not always what it seems like it is in the spiritual community. There's also a lot of ego and a lot of false pretenses and delusions in the spiritual community, and you deal with a lot of spiritual psychosis in the community. And you'll notice that once you start to embark further, you're in this mode where it's like, all right, I want to connect and I want to bring into a congregation or a community of people. And that's more of like the feminine trait, to have community and want to get a gathering of people. And as I ventured in that realm, I was like, man, this is definitely not what I expected, but it's also a great time to practice your discernment, refine your intuition, learn boundaries further, and also understand what it means to be sovereign and not allow the chatter of the spiritual community to pull you into this separation mindset as well.
I agree with you that I love what you said, and it's really true. As you start going, and especially when you're new to this information, and depending on how people are raised, which I want to ask you a little bit about yourself with that too. But when you're raised like I was and she was in a very Catholic kind of conservative setting, and then you start kind of pulling yourself out of that, you find that in a lot of ways you are really alone, because you're coming to information and expanding what it is that you think that it means to be in this reality, and in touch with God, source, the creator. And it's it's not something that everyone can accept. It's not something that everyone can be open to, at least hearing information about. So I'm excited to hear about that. But before we get too far into it, let's share his information so that people know where to find him and where you found him.
Yes. So I found him on Instagram, but I know you mentioned you are also on TikTok as well.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok as well. My name on there is Snowbear616. Snowbear
Okay.
is kind of my indigenous name, my spirit animal, I guess you can say, that I was
Okay.
given when I was baptized by a tribe in my home state of New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Very
That's
nice.
incredible. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of great content. Definitely, you guys should check it out. I always catch all of your videos, and I
Yeah,
love
I appreciate you, and you do get censored a lot. Like, my videos and my
it.
engagement has been censored. It's been diminished. When I first started, it was quite different, and now it's like the more you put yourself out there, the more you work against people trying to suppress your voice and get you to quit and stop creating videos. And then you also get in this place where it's like, am I focusing too much on the followers? Am I focusing too much on engagement, the numbers? So it's another part of your spirituality that challenges you to force the algorithm, in a sense, because um, social media is an algorithm. We as spiritual beings are an algorithm. So you'll notice when you shift your mindset, even with social media, it starts to alter the numbers, and it starts to skew them back in your favor if you can overcome that limited belief of feeling like somebody's against you, and the social media elites are trying to diminish people speaking about expanding consciousness.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Oh, that's my
Happy to
dad.
be here. Oh, okay. Oh, so you
Yeah.
guys got the whole family, is so that's super rare. You guys are very fortunate and super blessed to have the whole family and on it together. So that's very unique experience. So you're honestly probably the first group, trio family that I met that's actually all spiritually inclined. And I'm sure there was one of you who was first awaken, and then it kind of created this ripple
It's
effect.
fun.
um, yeah, so that's how it works. You become, like I couldn't do it, an activator for other people to further integrate. But of course, they have to be willing to do the work, but leading through example, not forcing your beliefs on them. Because initially, when you awaken, it's like, man, why can't I get through this barrier of making people understand? And you're forcing it, which kind of pushes people away, and they reject spirituality and these teachings that are spiritual, until finally you just simply exist in your authentic vibration, and they'll start to come to you and ask you questions like, how do I do this, or what does this mean, what does this number mean, what does this dream mean? I'm
Mhm,
experiencing chills through my body, I'm experiencing trauma coming up to the surface. And then
mhm.
that's where you have your people like your mom who've gone through it to help, gently aid you with the awakening process.
Yeah, no, definitely, it is a process. I mean, I'm still kinda newer on it, but definitely there's been times even recently where I'm like, you know and I don't know if you experienced this yourself, but there comes a point where you're trying to, like, take in so much information, you're trying to learn as much as you can and try and understand it, and then it gets to a point where it's almost like it shifts in the opposite direction where I'm like I almost feel like I can't take in any more information. I'm not re
Information overload.
Yeah, and then I'm almost, like, rejecting it in a sense. Not that I don't believe it. It's just like I can't listen to one more thing because I'm like, is this true? Is it not true? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like just kind of
Yeah.
trying to process it. So I feel like it's always like it ebbs and flows and all of that. But yeah, I've been experiencing that a lot more so now. So I often ask her, I'm like, did you experience that?
Yeah.
And I was curious, have you yourself had the
Oh yeah,
same? Like,
plenty. It's a completely natural process of the frequency that you're newly trying to attune and integrate with, and you're still trying to discover your personal intuition. One thing, when you start honing your own intuition, is you're going to start to weed out a lot of people, social media, live friends,
mhm,
a lot of people. You're going to start to weed them out because you're starting to further trust your intuition. So anytime you feel yourself in this mode where you're starting to question, is this person right, maybe they're wrong, maybe this person is onto something, maybe I just don't completely resonate, it's further pushing you to go inward and find what's true to you. And the hypersensory overload or spiritual burnout is a real thing, because
mhm,
when you're newly integrated into the awakening process, you're more prone to downloads, or claircognizant downloads, which are coming in through your crown chakra, which is your direct connection to source. And all this
right.
information is pouring in from this higher dimensional plane of existence, where you're not used to feeling this information come in from. And it's just simply energy, it's remembering. And as it comes in, you have to go through a process where your body is basically like a computer, with a computer mainframe, which can only store so much information at once. So once it reaches its threshold, that's when you start to go through these process of decay, rebirth, renewal. You go through these egoic deaths, and you go through these parts where you're experiencing something that is allowing you to release emotions, suppression of emotions, beliefs, limited beliefs, what you've been taught. And once you release that stagnation will further move out the way, which will allow you to bring in newer information, information that's currently aligned with you. So the more that you're willing to evolve, the more that you're willing to grow, the more that you're going to go through this process where you have more to release than the average person.
Yeah, it's so true. Welcome, Kelly. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, for myself too, I feel like that all happened to me as well. And I remember coming to a place where you almost go through a place of like nihilism, where you're
Mhm.
just thinking like, okay, well, if all of this, everything that I thought was real wasn't the way that it actually is, and everything that I didn't believe in it, I'm now supposed to believe in, it was kind of like, what's the point of any of it? Like you get real nihilistic about it. It's like, why am I caring about any of it then? Because I don't know what's what. And you kind of have to go through that place of just being really, really tender with yourself and allowing yourself to, you know, breathe and take it all in and just
Go through
get,
the motions of it. Allow yourself to
yeah,
feel
Yeah.
what you're feeling so you can
and
process it.
discern. It's all an important part of learning how to discern information. And you'll still have places and stuff where you think you made up your mind or something makes sense, but something new will come in and you kind of
Hmm.
broaden and you go, let me see about
Yeah.
that.
You're basically like an infant, a new sponge that's absorbing new information. And if you notice, you just look at the child, you look at a baby, they're just massively, their absorption rate is beyond the normal adult being. So that's
Mhm.
basically what happens is you go through this state where you're back to an infant and you're learning to walk, crawl, breathe, assimilate your new beliefs and how am I going to integrate it, things like that. So it's a tough process, and there's definitely different degrees of spiritually awakening. Some people endure just massive, spontaneous Kundalini experience like I did. Others slowly shift into their awakening where they're more consciously targeting certain areas of their life. They're more conscious of how the chakra, the sacral or the root chakra, what's blocking it, what's hindering it, and what they need to do with the line as far as healing trauma or becoming more grounded to the earth, more centered to the earth. Were you sexually abused? Were you experiencing certain kind of abandonment issues, rejection? Then these
Mhm.
are all associated with blockages that when you're conscious, you know how to pinpoint them. When you endure a Kundalini full blown out experience, like I knew nothing about chakras, I knew nothing about energetic centers, it just hits you. And it almost feels like your free will is stripped away from you. Like you literally cannot go back to an old way of living. And I was begging, like I was pleading and looking into the sky, begging to not be awakened, begging to not experience what it was I was experiencing. I just wanted to go back to my normal 3D life, my
Mhm.
three-dimensional life. But the more that I wanted to go back into my old ways, or I wanted to look for this instant gratification of burying and suppressing my wounds, which for me, it was a form of escapism, which I always look to women to bury away my pain and my hurt and the betrayal of my inner child. So for me, I would reach out, try to text somebody, try and call somebody, and the phone call would not go through. The text wouldn't go through. The email wouldn't send. So there was divine intervention in my case where I was like, no access granted. I couldn't go back to this way of living because with the Kundalini, it's very spontaneous. So the minute your Kundalini awakens, you're automatically on a different frequency. So
Yes.
that frequency creates a barrier from even allowing you to reach out to people where perhaps you wanted to go back to old coping mechanism, a old habit. It does not allow you to do that. Where with the more subtle awakening, it still allows you to fall, and it still allows you to stumble down the stairs and fall a bit to where you may go back to the X. You may need to go through a further ego death until you reach out that full blown out ego death that will not allow you to go backwards.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I know you kind of touched a little bit about your awakening process. So can you kind of open up a little bit and let us
Yes,
know
for
where
sure.
that?
So my awakening was July 2021 during COVID. It was finally being able to free myself from a narcissistic relationship compiled with my mom overdosing on heroin that same week. So I had my mom overdose that same week. I
Mhm.
finally freed myself from the narcissistic relationship. I was in a triangulation during that time because, when you deal with narcissists, you're kind of in this triangulation of going back between women, and that's what I was doing. I was between women. I was with one woman who was completely sociopathic, narcissistic. The other was more nurturing, more caretaking. But when you're in these abusive relationships, you want the person that you can't have, or the person that breadcrumbs you, the person that makes you feel like you need to work for their love, or that you need to earn their trust and things like that. So they keep you in this sense of this false idolization, this false idolatry. It's like a cult like experience that you go through with the narcissist, where it's constantly you trying to work for the attention, the acceptance, being seen, being validated. And they do just enough to breadcrumb you to where you think maybe I finally have this person to see the good in themselves. Maybe they're finally going to change. And it just keeps you in this constant cycle. So that belief, I had to finally let go of wanting to change people, wanting to save people,
Mhm.
wanting to feed my lustful temptation, sexual desires from a means of just having these superficial and these fleeting encounters with women. Um, and that led into my Kundalini experience in 2021, where I didn't know what was going on. I was in the shower. I would go to work and I would feel, like in the illustrations where you see these Kundalini depictions, the spear of energy that's kind of like a spiral.
Mhm.
That's exactly how it is. That's the energy that you feel. It's a spiral. You can be in the shower, it can be 98 degrees outside. You'll be in your room and you just feel this presence of energy lingering around your body, like just swirling around you to the point where It gives you chills. It makes you very uncomfortable. It's not something that I would be like, oh, this is such a beautiful experience. This is elation. This is joyful, blissful. It is completely frightening because you don't know what's going on.
Right.
You don't know how to go about it. You don't know if you're on the
Mhm.
brink of insanity, if you're going through existential crisis, some type of mental crisis. It's a bit of everything. And
Yeah.
that's where it becomes very important because a lot of people that think like, oh, well, I open my third eye. I don't want to have it open no more. I'm going to just close it. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of these people who are out here on social media and they're trying to claim that they have open third eyes, or they're trying to claim that they're awakened when really they're not, because you just can feel energetically when somebody is awakened versus when they're just conscious and they're on the precipice. Maybe they'll awaken in the future, but it's not my job to be like, hey, you're not awakened, so you're not I just
Mhm.
kind of dismiss it, and I'm just more like, all right, I'm going to pull back my energy from this person because they're not really on that place where they can talk about the awakening experience to the degree that they're trying to. So it's a lot of misinformation. It's a lot of collusion in the community right now with exactly the Kundalini experience is and what it will do to your life.
I totally agree with you, and it's such a hard conversation to have overall because it's a fine line where people can think that there's a judgment there, and it's not. It's not about judgment. It's just about when you go through something that alters your awareness of not just what life is and reality is, but just who you are as a person and what's possible for you as a person. It changes you. There's no way to undo that. There's no way to look at it from any other perspective. And I remember when I was kind of going through that, and even the energy, like you said, it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
You're literally uncomfortable in your own skin. it's
Yes.
it's something that you feel like you're trying to figure out, like, is it going to stay like this? Like, is this how I'm going to feel all the time every day now? Because I don't think I can do this all the time. And your ears are buzzing, and you can't go out in public, and you can't. I think it was like 4 months where I really just felt like, for me, it was too uncomfortable to be around other people. And I just was doing a lot of grounding, a lot of going across the street to the park and sitting at a tree and just quieting myself. I was meditating for hours and hours.
Going into hermit mode. You definitely went into a hermit
Yeah,
mode.
because I just
Yeah.
couldn't take it. It was so much, and it's not easy. It's not what all these people think. This, like you said, elation or joy when you do things. It's like everything's falling apart first. Your world and
Hmm.
what you realize to be true is gone, and you're kind of
Yeah.
sitting there going like, "What do I do with
But
this?"
it almost seems like you kind of push back against it too, because you know that phrase, like people will pick a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven with that too. And that's kind of like what I felt like I was going through as well, where I was just like, this is so uncomfortable that I don't know how to like kind of proceed through this. So I don't know if I want to do it, but you can't go back, like you said as well.
Yeah.
So it's definitely
Yeah.
hard to
Yeah.
navigate something new.
The human ego, it wants to resist
Hmm.
because of our attachments to relationships, our belongings, our friendships, our jobs, and we want to hold on and cling on to those things. But as the ego sheds, like, you soon realize the more I'm resisting, the more pain I'm causing myself, the more
Right.
hurt I'm causing myself. So whatever it is out there, God, source, energy, it's bigger than me.
Right.
It's way too powerful. It's way beyond my comprehension. So instead of resisting, I'm going to surrender and trust it because this is beyond my understanding. And that's where you really start to submit to a purpose that leads you into a smoother transition of the awakening. When you start to realize everything I'm doing is bringing in more tower moments, it's causing my life to fall apart further, it's
Hmm.
causing my relationships to dissolve. So the more that I'm trying to hold on, the more pain I'm causing. So something you learn really early in the awakening is surrendering and honestly learning to release people that you love. You have to release a lot of people that you love, a lot of friendships that once were, a different experience in your life. And sometimes the most selfless thing you can do for people that you love is to set them free and allow them to venture into their own spirituality.
That's so true.
It is true, and it's really a hard thing to do. And how do you Do you have anybody in your life that talks to you about that as they're going through that? What do you tell them? It's hard to be on one frequency and be surrounded by people that aren't on the same
Um,
frequency.
s- so in my life, the only person I physically have here with me is my girlfriend. I have my sister. I did lose my father to heroin overdose as well. I lost my brother
Mm,
to hepatitis
sorry.
C from heroin. So for me,
Mm,
I come from a broken home. I was always a black sheep. So for me, I didn't have mentors or I didn't have a book to read. I have a very short attention span, like all of you guys. You're probably diagnosed with these fake diagnoses of ADD or autism, neurodivergency, stuff like that. Things that really um, there's really not a diagnosis for those things. It's really somebody who is extremely sensitive to energy that has not yet learned to master their own energy that results in a chaotic experience within themselves. And once they learn to transmute that energy, that person becomes very centered, very grounded, very adept into going to places where they struggle with being in large crowds or feeling like wherever I go, I absorb the energy. But instead, you start walking into malls or you go to concerts, you go into parties or gatherings. Once you understand the true you and you understand all energy comes through me first. I control the energy wherever I go. All energy must work through me first. And that's really a mentality that you have to develop. It's not being arrogant or pompous, it's being confident in your energy and understanding that you physically have a spirit that starts to build around your Merkaba, your energetic shield that protects you from gossip, that protects you from somebody saying, hey, why don't you take a shot or do this line of cocaine? Why don't you come over so we can hook up? You start to have this sphere that's a magnetic shield that protects you from all these vibrations, these lower vibrations that are coming in to derail you or get you to fall back into an old way, old life. So for me, it's just I have my people on Instagram, my girlfriend in my life, and it's really been me that taught myself everything I know. That's why for me the purest teaching that I can give to people is to make them understand that there is nothing that I can do for you that you cannot do for yourself.
yes.
There's no such thing as a person activating your kundalini for you. There's no such
Mhm.
thing as a person activating your third eye for you. There's tantrics like kundalini yoga or tantric yoga where people can experience a very slight kundalini experience, and those are the ones they'll feel like orgasmic, or they'll feel the shakti, which is the feminine energy, which is very euphoric and it's very sexual, and those ones are a bit different, but that's not a permanent kind of kundalini experience. It's just temporary. As soon as you leave that group or you leave that meditation, you're back to your normal state of being. And this is where there's a lot of people that are monetizing and capitalizing on spirituality by telling people, I can access your Akashic records for you. I can do this for you. Um, and it really starts to disempower individuals. So the moment that you start having guidance where people are telling you that, well, if you want spiritual entities or these attachments cleansed from you, you have to come to me because you need somebody who specializes in this field to do it for you. And this is what you see a lot in the spiritual community. It's a lot of people telling them, I'm psychic, I can do this. Well, I'm clairvoyant, I can see this. I'm clairaudient, I'm claircognizant. When in reality, we're all those clairs. Every
Wow.
single one
Mhm.
of us possesses those abilities. Each transition you experience with your spirituality, each level of consciousness you expand, it further starts to develop all of those spiritual gifts. Now, are you going to have something unique for you? Of course you are. There's going to be something that is uniquely designed through your blueprint, your human blueprint, that allows you to specialize in expanding consciousness with how you choose, with what you're good at, and that's what separates your talent from the others. But as far as spiritual gifts and clairvoyance and all, we all have those abilities. It's just a matter of tapping into them.
Yes, I love that you said that. Um, I agree wholeheartedly. Everyone is, there's no one ahead. There's no one has more. We're all capable of doing all of these things. And, I've had people that have said that to me about what I'm doing. And I've said, many times that everything that I'm doing, you can do everything that you need, you have within yourself. And it's just a matter of, tapping into it and opening yourself up to it and having an allowance for these things to kind of come in. You have to look at it, not through the eyes of fear or anything, but just to allow yourself, to be really open. Open is the most important aspect, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, definitely. I would
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to pull this up real quick. Kit asked, how long would it take to learn these things? And I guess it would be dependent on the person, right? I mean, there's no set time
So
frame for anything.
really, with spiritual concepts and learning about spirituality, it's really about keeping it very simple,
Yeah.
limiting limiting how much you're trying to take on, and think about like the basics of spirituality, focusing on your self-love, your self-healing. What am
Mhm.
I struggling with? Ask the hard questions. What are my vices? Where's my shadow, and what is my tendency as far as where do I deviate when I think about the hard things in my life or the trauma? Where do I want to run to, and where do I want to, kind of bury myself away in? And these are the questions that you have to ask yourself, because those are what leads to consciously expanding. It's all about your healing. It's all about learning what self-love truly is, because self-love isn't going to buy a new wardrobe. It's not getting your hair done. It's not cosmology, the cosmetology field. It's not putting makeup on. Self love, it's very grimy and gritty work. Self love is becoming very in tune and very comfortable with your shadow aspects, the darker aspects that you suppress through your subconscious mind, the
Right.
things that we keep hidden in the shadows. And until
Mhm.
you can have this honest conversation and be like, you know what, I struggle with lust. I struggle with material possessions. I don't feel like I have enough. I feel like I need a nicer car. I need this. I need that. So you're always putting yourself in this lack state of being. And when you put yourself in a lack state of being, you do not allow the law of attraction to begin to work in your favor.
Right.
The moment that you shift and you start to think of gratitude, and you're starting to practice, things like mantras of I am, I feel, I accept, all these different mantras, and you really believe it and you apply it, because a lot of people know the knowledge, but they don't apply it. And that's where there's a line, and that's where people continue to evolve and leave people behind, is they know the knowledge and they're applying the knowledge. They're not procrastinating. They're actually working very diligently on themselves. While there's people who just delve and they read continuous books, and they're just they're obsessively starting to stimulate themselves with spiritual knowledge, all while they're completely doing nothing in their physical life. So that's really what it comes down to. You cannot procrastinate about spirituality. It's this is your nature. This is innate. This is who you are. And
Mhm.
once you understand this is who you are, it's not some hidden mystical experience. It is sacred. That's why a lot of the knowledge is hidden to average people, because it's a sacredness, and that's why there's such uh, a gap, and there's this loss in translation when you're trying to converse with people who are not on your frequency. It's a sacredness, it's a holiness, it's an anointing to awaken and experience Christ consciousness, or whatever deity you feel like you gravitate to. It's Shiva, whether it's Krishna, whether it's Muhammad. It's the same spirit that has imploded in all of these deities. For me, I just happen to gravitate toward Christ consciousness. So that's, it's not that I think that Christ consciousness is the way, the truth, and the light, but it's a singular consciousness. It's a singular oneness that you have to discover. And it's simply about remembering who you are.
I love that. I think that that's a really good, thing to leave people too, is coming from a place of looking at your shadow work and realizing that, you know, your blueprint and everything that it is that you came here, that you have to work through, and you're holding all of that within you. So it's just to be really, really honest with yourself and allow yourself to look and feel. And when you feel that energy where it gets uncomfortable, where you start feeling like you want to step back away from it, that you want to go do something else and distract yourself, that's exactly where you need to be standing then.
So you're like on the precipice of kind of breaking through that. And it's also,
Yeah.
it's a process. It's not like it's a one and done thing. You could spend however much time working on something, and then you're like, okay, I worked through it, and then something else will come up, and something else will come up,
Yeah.
So it's multi-layered with
Yeah.
that, but it's definitely
There,
necessary, because it's like the more you
there,
express, the more it
yeah.
comes up.
There's definitely signs when people are, going to awaken, or they're more prone to spirituality. There's going to be a ton of signs, and I can freestyle some of those signs just for the average person who's watching right now. You're definitely going to be the black sheep of the family. You're going to be the child that didn't fit in. You're going to be the person that was highly empathic, somebody that wanted to take others' pain away because you grew up in survival. You grew up feeling like you need to save everybody. You were very codependent, and in a very long duration of your life, you're going to gravitate toward animals. You're going to gravitate toward nature. You're going to feel like you have this deep desire to be into solitude, even as a child. You struggled maintaining relationships throughout your life, even as a child, because you were afraid to be vulnerable because you knew nothing about what a healthy relationship was. You're highly empathic, very sensitive to energy. You're looking for something more. You always felt like there was something calling you, even from a very early age. And you're able to look into your bloodline and recognize the generational plague, the generational karmas that have plagued your family, and you feel like you want to be the one that does something about it. So you're already in this mindset where you want to shift the whole dynamic of your bloodline. You want to be the generational curse breaker of your bloodline. But that comes with a lot of responsibility because you yourself are also going to carry a lot of those addictive traits. And those addictive traits does not mean that you're going to be a drug addict or you're going to be an alcoholic. We have addictions in everywhere. I've never been drunk in my life. I've never done a drug. I've smoked marijuana, some weed, I've done some mushrooms, but other than that, I never did any other substances or been drunk in my life because of where I came from. But my addictions were women. I was addicted to sex. I was addicted to these pleasures of my life that were really compromising my soul, that were really becoming a fragmented part of my existence because every time I was losing myself in women, I was further fragmenting my soul, and I was acquiring these soul ties, and I was inheriting all the energy of other people. So not only was I now struggling to know myself, my energy, now I had energy attachments from other people that had their own bullshit that they were dealing with, their own entanglements. Just like physics, you become quantum entangled through the
Yes.
atoms and the particles, and now you have more karma to now liberate yourself from further. So it's really about taking accountability, taking responsibility for your life, understanding the true meaning of what it truly means to control your reality, what it means to free yourself from your mind and the prison that your mind can become when you're not aligned and when you're living in a state of conformity to the dogmas, to the religious beliefs, to the things that people tell you can and can't do, even the spirituality. There's this stigma that's starting to be implemented in the spiritual community where you need to do this, you can't do that, you need to be vegan, you can't ascend if you eat meat, and it's just so much bullshit. Like you can ascend equally if you're vegan versus if you eat meat. It's if you do choose to go vegan, you're going to have to match that frequency of becoming vegan, and you're going to ascend equally as much as a person that understands that they can ascend also eating meat. So it's a belief, and it's really a stigma that um, you see a lot of in the spiritual community. Like I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that I told you you're going to evolve past a lot of beliefs. You're going to evolve past even concepts like star seeds, light workers, concepts where you may evolve past soul contracts. Like these are all
Mhm.
perceptions and these are all beliefs that I'm starting to develop different perspectives. Now, do I believe that we come from other constellations? Absolutely. But I believe all of us, everybody on this planet is from the stars. I don't believe that any one person has a special mission, has
Thank
a
you.
unique gift set that separates them from the rest. We all
Yeah.
do. And that's the same concept with soul contracts. Do I believe that we came to earth and we chose the characters to play out and live in this reality? Absolutely, I do believe that. But I do not believe that I am binded by a contract, that I am absolutely binded and I have to do this. And if I don't do this, I will repeat my life. So that's what really separates my perspective shifting from certain beliefs, because a lot of people I've noticed, and I know a ton of people that label themselves as star seeds, and they just have this very grandiose superiority ego complex about them that I no longer want to associate with, that I no longer want to like to me, the term starseed was very endearing at some time in my life. It meant, and it was a remembrance, a reminder that this is my temporary home, but my permanent home is in the stars,
Mhm.
is in the celestial heavens. That was just a reminder, but now it's gone so watered down and it's thrown around like it's just this, it like it's a commodity and it's not something that is pure anymore. And that's just you evolve like I evolved past the twin flame belief. That was another thing I evolved past, and I get a lot of heat for talking about twin flames on my page, but I have talked about it on my page and different lives where I evolved past that belief because I started to see myself as my feminine, my masculine energy becoming my own sacred union, becoming my own twin flame, merging it into myself and making myself my own twin by bringing those two energies together. And that allowed me to naturally attract my girlfriend. It allowed me to attract healthier relationships. So everything I wanted to attract, I needed to become. But I do believe in sacred unions. I do believe in past life, reunions from people that you were probably with in past lives, and you continue to find each other because you're still trying to elevate through consciousness as one.
Yeah, and I remember you did a video some months back too that stood out to me, which it kind of ties in to what you were saying, how you even kind of surpassed even doing like the traditional meditation as well, if I remember that correctly.
So, I'm meditation is what you make it. It's
Mhm.
to me meditate. I can be with these headphones on and put on some music and hip hop, and that puts me in a very meditative state. Meditation is simply being able to quiet the mind, be present in that moment. So meditation is going to be different to every individual. Do I need to sit under a tree like Buddha to discover enlightenment? Absolutely not. You can do that in the loudness in the world. You can do that at home. It's just about being able to put yourself in that state. And now, is it very helpful to meditate, put on frequencies? Absolutely, it is. But it's not something that's like a prerequisite in your spirituality to allow for further integration and expansion of your own individualized consciousness. It is what you make it. It's what feeds your soul, what makes you happy, what feels aligned to you.
I agree with that too. I remember when I was going through the phases of meditating, and at first I couldn't listen to any other frequencies at all. It would pull me off. I could always do better by myself than I did if I actually added anything, binaural beats or any of those kind of things. And then it got to the point where I preferred them for a while. And then it got to the point when I started having my visions where if I was doing something mundane, like doing the dishes, or if I was cleaning the stove, or if I was doing things like that, and I was, eyes open and doing things, and I would start getting things that were coming in. And then it got to the point where you'd just be thinking about things, and you're like, I wonder if, and well, you don't even have that thought out yet, and the answer is already coming in, and you're recognizing, that you're getting it real time. So it goes through phases, I think, and it's different. It's a different thing for everyone, but yeah, it's just to know really that you're always connected. You're never apart from it. And I found too that going through that, it was easier for me when people talk about like quieting your mind and trying to focus in on things. I found it easier to expand past it. So because there's all this stuff that stays in your field that's like very 3D, and it's all kind of around us. And I don't know if it's like the EMF stuff and the radio waves and things like that. I'm not really sure what it is, but I can feel it. There's a point though where you can pull yourself out, expanded past that, and then the noise gets really quiet, and
Hmm.
you just have all of this information that's available to you in a different thing. But it's just to allow yourself to kind of move and expand just a little bit past all of that, and there it all is, and all of that connection and answers is right there.
Hmm.
It's just to get out of the noise.
Definitely. I noticed that you do have a little political mindset. With I skimmed through your page a bit, and I saw some RFK posts, which he's real popularized for EMF and 5G, and just talking about things that were so-called conspiracy theorists. So in that context, for me, when I think about protecting myself from the chemtrails, from 5G towers or EMF, frequency waves, I personally have developed this belief in myself, and I would encourage everybody to start to develop the belief that no frequency is more powerful than a God frequency. So the God frequency is a natural transmuter, a natural alchemical device that you can integrate into yourself that will block you from, from these. Um, I would call them both spiritual and consciousness warfare that really is trying to be imposed on the collective right now through through chemtrails or vaccines and things like that. And it's not something that I dismiss personally, although I see a ton of people dismiss it in the spiritual community because it's so called a distraction, when in reality it's just simply bypassing the darker aspects of humanity. So I never advise for people to dismiss what's truly going on around the world with genocide or in Gaza, Israel. I encourage people to feel it, to put yourself through the lens of that child or that woman that lost their baby, that person that is separated by a sea or ocean, that wasn't as fortunate as us to be born into the states in a place where we're sheltered and we're desensitized from a lot that goes around the world. And it's real easy to develop that mindset and be like, well, that's not on my timeline, that's not my reality, I don't experience this on my timeline, that's low vibration, that's not real, it doesn't exist, this is all just a simulation anyway. So when you put yourself in that mentality, it really takes away from being human and allowing yourself to feel sadness, to feel grief, to feel anger, apathy, and process through these emotions, because it is a very helpless feeling to have with everything going on around the world. And we all ask that question, well, what can I do about it? We control only what we can control. But at the same time, if you're spreading awareness, if you're talking about it, yet you're talking about it in the sense where you're not completely losing yourself and you're not completely frustrated or feel like you're becoming unkiltered emotionally and it's throwing you out of alignment, then by all means, there's some people with a spiritual purpose that come to this planet to expose politics, that are here to disrupt old systematic ways of living. That's their purpose. Other people's purpose may be to go and live in solace in the woods and live off grid and become homesteaders and somehow implement that way of life into the collective by allowing people the blueprint to understand that if I can do it, we all can do it. So we all have a different purpose. Like I said, it's just unique to the individual. There's no right or wrong way to go about things. There's no topic or discussion that's going to instantaneously lower your vibration when it has to do with the betterment of humanity or the state of humanity and where we're trending in. So it's about really broadening your perspective and allowing yourself to see everything and feel everything that is naturally being suppressed by social media. Because if you notice, like social media and propaganda is completely trying to make it to where you're blind to what's going on around the world. And if you stay blind to it, then they're doing exactly what they want. But if you're aware of it, then you're able to counter it through, through your thoughts, through your mindfulness, through your transmutation, through your thoughts alone.
Yeah, I like to kind of look at it now. Before my awakening in like 2016, I was very, very into politics. It was stayed on my TV all the time. I was always kind of on news things and everything. And then when I went through my awakening, I kind of moved away from all of it. I didn't go into any of it at all. And I left myself in that space where I didn't want to look at it, didn't want to hear about it, I didn't want to see it for a really, really long time. I just thought, same thing. It was all very low vibe, negative. I wasn't trying to go there. I was learning and expanding about so many other things that were in my spirituality, and I just didn't have any tolerance for any of it. But now I think I look at it more as a barometer. I'm always looking to kind of see where people are in their understanding, where they are in what's important to them, what are they looking at, what are they thinking about, and how are they feeling about where we are in this. Does the collective feel like there is an ascension? Is it still really separate where there's, which I know we have these groups that I feel like you said, all of our, in what we're doing here is very individual. It's going to be an ascension that's individual to each person. but there are some people who have no awareness at all. And then there are people that they do, but it's to an extent, they don't want to hear about everything because I think it's overwhelming. We'll see where we land, but I find it interesting. I like to see people's reactions to certain aspects of it, but I feel like there's at least seems to be a consensus that a lot of these things are going in a more positive direction, where for a while it didn't seem like humanity was going to be moving in as positive a direction. But there's little things that are going on now that I feel like are giving people hope. And it's interesting to watch the conversations, although sometimes it does bite me in the butt, because I'll put something up trying to see, just kind of gauging where everybody's at, and they'll start arguing in my feed, and I have to like delete it because I'm like, okay, that was not the intention with that. So I just did that
Yeah.
recently. I had to delete one.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, as a content creator and somebody that was extremely introverted, I've been creating content on Instagram for 4 years, and so the things that we fear are the things that we have to overcome when it comes to posting. If you're
Yeah,
fearing your ex seeing it, if you're fearing the perception of others, or the intention of how they're going to portray, or how they're going to, how they're going to absorb your post, then so be it. You have to get to a point where it's like, fuck it. If this is how they feel about me, if this is what they think, I really don't care.
yeah,
Because that's what existing in the presence and being authentically yourself. If that's an extension of who you are, then by all means let people see you in that light. That's not your problem. It's not nothing to take personal. You're always going to have people critical of you. You're always going to have people telling you to, oh, why don't you create a video about this? Why don't you talk about this? Can you elaborate further on this and do that? Well, I don't agree with you. There's always somebody who has an opinion, but in reality, you're doing it because it's something that brings awareness, joy, whatever it feeds as far as your soul. If it feels good on a soul level, then continue to do it. But you just have to accept that it is going to ruffle feathers, it is going to trigger people. But if you're not triggering people on this planet, then you're not doing something right.
yeah,
Exactly what I say. Exactly what I say. And I feel like it's necessary. That's why I also wanted you to come on the show, because I feel like you so like eloquently explain all of this, whereas someone like me, I struggle with my words, and it's like I know what I want to say, I can't get it out. So I feel like the way that you break it down to where it's so easy to follow and it makes sense with that. So that's why I appreciate you even coming on to do that. And I have plenty of people in my personal life and people on Instagram that, to be honest, they really don't, I wouldn't say they're not spiritual, but I don't think they're as awakened. So I'm like posting stuff like, hey, join the show and everything, tune in. And I'm like, they're probably thinking I've lost my mind, because they're people I used to go out drinking with and all that. And I have no interest in doing that. But I'm like,
Hmm.
but I feel so drawn to be like, I just want to get the information on, even if it's just planting the seed, then
Yeah,
I did my job, and at some point they'll come
definitely.
around to it in their own time.
Yeah, yeah. And to be completely transparent with you, you're gonna lose more people than you gain. But would
Mhm.
you rather have 100 fake people wearing a facade and masquerading as being a genuinely good human being, or would you rather have one or two people that are authentically here with you and support you? um, you're going to lose all those people, I'll tell you that
Yeah.
now. All those people that you had this version of yourself, that you party with them, you drank with them. But what makes it very, you know very, very rewarding is you will have that person come back around from your childhood, or somebody that you may have had some kind of fall off with. They'll come back to you, and they'll be like, hey, you're like, I'm sorry, I reacted this way, but I'm experiencing exactly what you said was going to happen, and I'm kind of lost. Can you help me? And this is where really, you practice humility. And if the crime doesn't supersede the logic of welcoming some people back into your life, then by all means everybody deserves a second chance. Some people honestly do not. Second offenders, honestly, some crimes are not worth allowing people a second chance back in your life, but you're going to have some people where they're absolutely deserving.
No, definitely. And I was just thinking that too, where I noticed, especially more recently, like the circle's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, family, friends, all of that. And even like this past week, I've had a lot of revelations where I'm like, okay, but I always think like having quality over quantity is way better. I'd rather have
Definitely.
someone who's matching my energy. And, that's another thing, is energy never lies. So what kind of vibe do you get from them as well? So practicing that discernment is so key. And, sometimes like I've even caught myself where it's like, I think it's one thing and it's not. I'm like, okay, well, that's a lesson in that. So it wasn't what I thought it was, but that's okay. So
Yeah,
it's definitely been quite a
definitely.
journey.
That's really a fourth dimensional concept that I practice religiously, is finding neutrality. Neutrality will save you so much grief and heartache and heartbreaks. If you can find neutrality in politics, then you're going to be in a very, very fine place in your life. If you can find neutrality with spiritual concepts that necessarily maybe you don't agree with, you don't align with, but hey, it's bringing joy and happiness in this person's life, then by all means, find that neutrality. That's where I am, like with concepts of twin flames. If you practice the twin flame journey in your life, by all means, it's not bothering me. Like you asked me the question why I moved away from it. I answered it. It triggered you. And now you're attacking me for asking me a question about the twin flame journey. It's nothing personal. I just chose to move beyond it because I felt like it was limiting my capacity by thinking my happiness, my fulfillment lies in the hand of another soul coming into my life to complete me. I should be able to do that for myself.
Yeah.
So there's so much concepts that I find neutrality in. I understand that people are desiring for union and sacred unions and communities, which is natural as a human being. But at the same time, um, when you venture further out into the community, you're going to see a lot of spiritual covert narcissism in the spiritual community. Because what better place to go and try to rip apart a community than the spiritual community that is taught don't judge, don't have these judging of character, energy. You need to give this person a chance. You need to continue to see people in a different light and allow them into the community, when in reality this isn't how I am in my personal life. So why would I do it in my spiritual life? If I see something off, if I see something that's raising a red flag, or it's causing my intuition to tell me that this person is dark, this person is sociopathic, I don't want nothing to do with them just because they're so-called spiritual. I'm gonna pull away, and I don't need to offer explanation. I don't need to be obliged or have an obligation to explain why I cut you off. I'm simply doing it because it's protecting my peace.
We just
We
went through
literally just went through that, like everything you said verbatim. And it's kind of like, if you notice something, that something doesn't feel right, and then you say it, and then if other people are kind of like, why? But I think they're great. I had a great like this or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, but this doesn't feel right to me. But then they're kind of looking at you like, well, what's your problem and all that. It's like, it's not that I have a problem. It's just I see something and this isn't sitting right with me. But then it's almost like, well, am I looking into this the wrong way? Am I actually seeing this? So it's kind of like, it's like an internal battle.
There's a lot of people that are in the spiritual community right now too, that it's coming to a place where I think it's hard when people are newly trying to find what their belief system is going to be. They know that what they were believing before doesn't work anymore. They're finding out all this new information, but they're not sure how they feel about it. And when you have people in the community that, are telling you that you need to tune in because they're going to give you all the new downloads and all the new information, and people are waiting on bated breath to find out how they're supposed to feel about something, how they're supposed to think about something based on what this person is telling them, or the fact that they're a contactee, or the fact that they have this inside scoop. I don't like that, because I feel like you're just switching, going from like whatever religion or whatever your belief system was there, that you believed in the government, you believed in the church or whatever it was, to now you're giving yourself a guru that's going to now tell you what you're supposed to think or how you're supposed to feel. And so that's kind of what we've been looking at and dealing with. And honestly, some of these people were even what we would have considered friendly with, right? But we just have come to a place where it's you can't ignore when you feel like people are doing a disservice to people, because there's this ego that's there and this level of narcissism that's there. And it's like, no, people don't need uh, to have a guru to tell them exactly what to think and how to feel. And when you're going through this information, it's a lot, but that's where you practice discernment, and that's where you're not going to get everything right, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to go through your own personal narcissistic relationship. And that's why it's an initiation. That's why it's a rites of passage, because as you heal from that and you put yourself together from that, now you're going to go into a community, and now you have the ability to discern between energy that's narcissistic versus the energy that's pure. And without experiencing that narcissistic encounter, you would be led into the spiritual community, and you would honestly be, you know, you'd be a prey for many predators, because there's a lot of predatory like energy in the spiritual community that hide behind the guise of things like, well, let's just have sex. It's sexual alchemy. You're healed, I'm healed. Let's just get together and sleep together, and we'll have this magical transformative experience, because you're in your goddess energy, I'm in my masculine energy. So it's just going to be so blissful and joyous, and it's going to align us further into our purpose. So when people can persuade you, it's real easy. Like, if you understand the lingo, you understand the terminology, you understand how to speak spirituality, and you understand and you can conceptualize these kind of understanding the knowledge that you can gain from a book, then it becomes very dangerous. And what's happened is people have weaponized that knowledge that they have gained from books that they don't practice themselves. They haven't done the work themselves. So they will weaponize all this knowledge, and you'll think, oh, this person understands this concept. They must be awakened. They must be enlightened. When in reality, all they've done is immerse themselves in some books and pulled some regurgitation out of a book, and now they're trying to weaponize it against you, to use your empathy against you.
Yeah.
No, that's really true. I'm just like, I'm trying to like process everything, but it's exactly spot on. It's just kind of funny that this came up, because it's like one thing when you like hear about it, when you actually witness it firsthand, it's so different. And it was like, wow, this is very prevalent. But again, trying to
Yeah,
come from a place of neutrality, even though sometimes it's hard because we're human, and we can get emotionally involved in things. But I think finding that emotional regulation is definitely something that we all have to
it is.
constantly work on.
Yeah, but also, you can't allow it to breed weakness, and allow it to breed this passive aggressive mentality. If you need to check people, you have to check people sometimes and remind them who you are, remind them where you came from, because in spirituality you're taught that you can't be confrontational, you can't be aggressive at times, but at times you need to assert yourself when your boundaries are continuously being trampled on. You need to use your voice at times when people are trying to gaslight you or diminish your voice, and
Mhm.
that means I need to raise my voice, or I need to put my chest out and assert myself with confidence. Then I need
Mhm.
to do that, because that's a masculine trait. If I, as a masculine, cannot protect my woman, my family, my community, then as a man, I have nothing to live for, because I'm the protector of the three-dimensional realm. The
Mhm.
woman is the gateway into the spiritual realm. And as
Mhm.
those two come in together, that's what restores balance here on earth. But there's an inversion, because here on this planet, it's always been an inversion. It's always been about doing things backwards. So now we have a ton of women who are in their masculine role, and they're portraying their protective role. And now we have a ton of men who are in their feminine energy. They're more submissive to the woman. They're more adapt to women being the breadwinners, and they're staying at home with the child, which is cool. But at the same time, it's starting to breed a very weak and emasculated man. So it's really about
Mhm.
restoring balance, and that requires people to understand that at times I can be loving, gentle, compassionate, but at the same time I have a equally reinforcing energy that's very fiery, and is full of fury and full of pent
Mm.
up aggression that I've worked so hard to take control of. It isn't gone. It's just somewhere inside that I've learned to control it. But at any moment, any given moment, I can release that in a positive way, because your anger You know, all these emotions that you may have associated with something negative, like anger, you learn to transform it and transmute it in a very positive way. Sometimes that means you have to tell people they're full of shit, you know?
No, that's true, and not have to worry about the pushback of it too. But it's kind of like it's all about how you present it as well, because I've had to do that with people as well, and I've always been the kind of person that I struggle with establishing boundaries. I'm a people
Hmm.
pleaser, but lately it's just kind of like I'm not doing this anymore.
It's
Like,
been a lot of growth for
yeah.
you, though. Really, she's had to push herself outside of her regular
Mhm.
level of comfort, and which was probably the reason for having to go through it in the first place. But it's been a lot of growth. But both of us, we've
Yeah.
really just been dealing with this, so it was kind of interesting that it all came up like that, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
But it
And
shows people
one
that
thing
it's part of the process.
and one thing that you're going to notice is like the more that you come in together with your family, with your mom and with your father, the quicker you're going to weed people out of the community, the quicker you're going to weed people out of your life, because the energy just becomes more amplified when you have one, two, three people who are
Mhm.
practicing the same cause and working toward the same cause. So it causes people to reveal their intentions a lot sooner rather than later. And it's something you have to accept. Like you can't take it personal. You know, you really have to step into an era where you're no longer people pleasing and you're no longer fearful of telling people no. You're empathic, as we all are, otherwise we wouldn't awaken. And one thing that we struggle with as empaths is we struggle with conflict. We try to avoid conflict by all means, but
Mhm.
sometimes conflict is a means of liberating ourselves from the aggressors or from people that are you know, abusing us emotionally or physically, or however that emotional abuse may come. You have to be able to be a warrioress or a warrior and remember when to pull your sword out, remember when to yield your sword. It's a balance, it's a duality within, and exercising your right to use your voice or assert your voice aggressively or approaching people with kindness and compassion. It's your choice, but if it's liberating you, if it's freeing you, then you have to do it, because people will see you as vulnerable, they'll see you as weak, and they will take complete advantage of you.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of letting people know, like, you're not gonna disturb my peace. This will no longer
Yeah.
serve me. I wish you well. Good luck with whatever you're doing, but we're not having this exchange anymore. No, that's not to say that at some point things can't come around. You got to give people the space to be able to do their work and work through their stuff. But I guess it just depends on the person and the situation with that. But it was eye opening, and it's been quite a process. And I mean, we're still working through the process. But I told my parents that what we need to remember is that we have each other. We have a very strong foundation, and sticking together, and nothing's going to penetrate what we have, the sacred space that we have with ourselves as well. So I mean, anybody can do that, whether it's with family members, you can have it with a friend, a sibling, even just yourself. Just make sure you have that strong, stable, sacred space for yourself, and nobody's going to be able to disturb that.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, it warrants a lot of envy, a lot of hatred, from people that know nothing about you, know nothing about your background. When you vibrate and you have a very unique frequency, it's going to cause people, even from the back of a screen, to observe you in a false light. It's going to reflect onto them what they lack in themselves, and you have to walk away from a lot of people. But you know, for me, and I'm sure your mom went through an era where it's called your fuck it era, where if it's not helping me grow, then fuck it. If
Yep.
it offends you, fuck it. If you don't like what I said, fuck it. My growth
Mhm.
is hurting you, or you're perceiving me as arrogant because I'm finally choosing myself for once in my life, then fuck it. Go ahead and perceive me in that way. I will accept being the villain in your narrative. I will accept being the villain in your life. If that makes you feel better of yourself, then so be it. I accept it. I'm not going to argue or bicker about it. I'm simply going to accept that this is how you see me, because I know who I am. Once you know who
Mhm.
you are and you have that that frequency of knowing and that frequency of being completely in your power, then other people's perceptions doesn't matter.
Yeah, they have
So
that
true.
phrase. What is it? People's opinions of me are none of my business. It's just like you're going to be the villain in somebody's story, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
just wish 'em well and keep them over
Yep.
there.
Or there's also people are like assholes. They all have, we all they're
Yeah.
or how does it go? Um, People are like assholes. We all have one. Or
Yep.
people's opinions are like assholes. We all have one. Something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So as you content start to create, because I notice it's something that you're kind of easing your way in. Um, you're going to see a lot of that as you start to
Mhm.
create content, and it's a great place to go. Like, I understand social media and how it can be weaponized, but I also understand the beauty of it. You're going to see a bit of both of it, but I always encourage people to speak, open your throat chakra, share your testimony, share your spiritual journey, start to open yourself up to expansion. And because this is the way the new earth is going to be birthed, we can't stay
Mhm.
silent. We can't have this ideology of things just magically appearing without us needing to do the action and do the work. At some point, we're manifesting it. It's being created within. Heaven is being created within. At some point, now we have to take action through the law of inspired action. So once you understand like the basic principles and the basic laws of the universe, you start to see how they work in our reality. And that's like a pillar for me, is understanding the law of correspondence, which is the mirroring effect: as above, so below, as within, so without. Everything really is a mirror into either what you lack or what they lack. Sometimes you attract people that lack what you are. Sometimes you attract people that want to take what you are. So there's always like a pendulum with energy vibration, and you live it, you experience every single day of the law of attraction, how it works simply through your belief system and what you put out as far as the frequency of you existing.
Yeah, and it's easier to kind of, once you have this awareness, you kind of catch yourself if you're, for example, going into more negative frame of mind, and it's like you're coming from a place of lack, but then you're like, oh wait, I noticed I'm doing this. I have to kind of shift that program, so I'm not constantly
Hmm.
staying in a state of lack with that as well. And it's easier. So it's easier, the more you do it, the more you catch yourself, and it's easier to bounce back each time as well. So,
Yeah,
and it's also like, oh, if someone did me wrong or they did something to hurt me, I'm like, okay, but now I can look at it like, what was the lesson in it? What were they mirroring back to me that I need to work on myself? I'm not coming from a victim mentality. I'm coming from, okay, this is a growth opportunity for that. So it definitely makes
definitely.
you look at it differently, and it's definitely more liberating too, because then you're not coming from like, oh, woe is me, this is terrible, the world sucks, and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, many of us were victims in some way. We may have had our innocence stripped away, sexual molestation, rape, where your innocence is stripped from you. But at the same time, like, although you're a victim, never allowed to for that to lay over and carry over as far as your mentality, and become a victim of introspection. And that's really what allows us to heal from things that necessarily weren't in our control as children, or somebody who's very naive and innocent. Because naive is something we all struggle with as empaths. We used to see the good in everything.
Mhm.
um, we
Yeah.
can see w- one good thing in a person while they have 10 red flags. And what do you
Yeah.
think the empath is going to do? They're going to self-sabotage, thinking, oh, there's a green flag. I can work with this. I can help this person. I can make them see the light. I can help this person change. So we're constantly living vicariously through our inner child that was somehow restricted from being seen or being heard or feeling abandoned or rejected. It always stems from our childhood, where there
Mhm.
was something that happened that made us feel like we were in a lack state of being.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also just to kind of remember that we create it to see it. So as we're going into, this new information and new energies that are coming in around us, you hold your frequency by what you're thinking and what you're feeling and what your actions are. And so to have those things all aligned with the larger purpose that you feel that you're here for, what it is that you're doing, and to stay in your heart space. But also, like you said, you have to be as strong as steel. You can't be a pushover and allow things to come into your field that you don't want there. So what is it that you're trying to create? And as if we can all do that and come from a place where we know what we want the direction we kind of want the world to go, what we want reality to look like for us as a collective, taking the actions and doing those things, holding the space of being in your heart and allowing for yourself to build something new. It's a lot to carry all of those things with you, but if you can do that, and if you can help others to see that that's how we do it, that's how we co-create, then we start bringing into fruition exactly what it is that we're hoping to live in, that we're creating it to see it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the thing is a lot of people make the mistake of venturing into the collective and trying to help the collective when really they haven't figured out who they are. They don't
Yeah.
understand their energy quite yet. And that's what happened with me. Like when I first awakened, I was going through this preparation period where I was discovering who I was. And as I discovered who I was and I started to understand my purpose, that's when I started receiving a ton of downloads about speaking, about sharing the testimonies. And, I had some supernatural occurrences happen with my awakening where my phones were malfunctioning, electricity was doing things that shouldn't be doing, computers, everything. Like it was just glitching in a way where I would receive downloads from electronic devices. I would have my phone give me info that I did not search, but it somehow would appear on my phone. And I kept seeing this scripture about speaking, about sharing my voice, and I would dismiss it. And then finally kept seeing it. I was like, okay, I'll try this out. I'll submit, and I will trust the process. I will trust the divine plan. And that's when I started to create. But I was ready. I was grounded in my energy. I was centered. I had just figured out how to really decompartmentalize my thoughts while not taking on people's energy that existed outside of myself. Because with the Kundalini experience, what happens, and a lot of people have this experience, is they start to fall into this mindset that they're under spiritual attack. When in reality, with the Kundalini, your darkness is going to manifest. So you literally can wake up where you're kind of in between, in that theta sleep, or in that astral realm, and you start to see shadows at times. You start to see apparitions, and you think like, oh, I'm I'm under attack. I'm being spiritually attacked, not realizing this was your creation. These are your shadows manifesting in the physical, and that's what happened with me. I literally woke up from a sleep where I was having a dream that I was existing, like I was having like a past life regression dream where I was existing on a different planet, and I woke up and I looked around my bed and I had all these apparition and shadows. But I remember feeling so calm and peaceful that I simply just laid back to sleep because I already had this belief in myself and belief in God and the universe, that nothing can harm me, that nothing can hurt me. And from that day, they just disappeared. Like I experienced objects in my house being turned upside down, and I realized that these were demons, my demons, that were manifesting into my physical reality. I was also experiencing angelic, lights and apparition of other angelic beings, um, and those too were manifest. So it was literally the light. It was literally the dark manifesting in my physical. But a lot of people don't understand that with spiritual attacks, it's simply not being able to control your own mind. Are they
Mhm.
real? Yes, they are real, but that's something that you have to be able to refine as an individual by
Mhm.
controlling your thoughts. Because everything in this world, everything in this universe needs universal consent. So there's always these loopholes of trying to get you to question yourself or make you think like the victim, like, oh, my life is falling apart because this demon or this person's attached to me and I can't get over it because it's too strong. So right there, when you start thinking it's too strong, that's the loophole that demonic entity needs to enter your magnetic field. You're giving it consent by thinking it's too strong, that you're being illy affected. And that's really where people sometimes down spiral and don't really get themselves out of delusion or spiritual psychosis. But when you understand that nothing is more powerful than God consciousness,
Mhm.
you're already putting yourself in a position to succeed because you're believing that nothing is more powerful than God consciousness or Christ consciousness. And that's really how come the name Yeshua or Jesus holds so much power, or other deity, because you've already reinforced that this is a powerful deity that you've invoked through the energy alone. And when you practice it in your physical life, then it just becomes a personified experience through your spirituality.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's absolutely true. And as we're looking, we're in over the hour. Is there anything else, Anthony, that you want to tell us about? You have anything that's kind of coming up for you, or
So
Anything you
for
want to share?
myself, I just recently moved out here to Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and it took me time to get acclimated. I've been here for 3 months now. I moved from New Mexico. Um, I'm sure you guys all feel that urge to be very nomadic, be kind of light on your feet and just go wherever. I feel
Mhm.
like as spiritual beings, we need to travel more. We need to sightsee more. We need to go to ley lines. We need to see the beauty that we have, because we've been conditioned and taught to think of Earth as this prison planet, or this planet where you're constantly in this reincarnation cycle, as if it's punishment, when in reality, like, I shifted my perspective from that as well, because it's like having infinite lives to get shit right, to get it right. And to me, that's a gift. That's like an ultimate cheat code, when you have unlimited lives to figure out why you're here. Why is that a punishment?
Mhm.
So for me, that was something that I was like, why do we frown upon this human experience? Yes, it's hard, but if you just open your eyes and you look at the beauty that surrounds you, because a spiritual awakening has a very profound awareness that allows you to simply look into the sky, hear the birds chirping, smell the fresh cut grass. Like, your vision literally changes when you go through a spiritual awakening. You literally see more clearly. Like, you can have blurred vision. My vision drastically enhanced when I went through an awakening. My central nervous system, depression, anxiety, all dissipated. I never took medications, and I really began to heal myself metaphysically. Um, and that's what I would encourage people to start looking beyond, start finding natural remedies, natural cures to heal yourselves, because the metaphysical way of healing yourself, it's irreplaceable, and it's always been orchestrated to be constructed in a way where we heal ourselves. And we have that ability to continue to expand our consciousness, where who knows what other elements we can start healing through elevating our consciousness awareness. Because right now, we've barely started to exist on this plane, where maybe we exist outside the 10% consciousness space that we use. Maybe we're at 11, 12%, who knows. But it's barely starting. Like, the earth has been here billions of years, and that's how come I don't really fall into the deception of the great solar flare that's supposed to split the earth into the third dimension and the fifth dimension. I really think it's going to take a long time, but we're really setting this foundation for a place where your kids are going to have a place to succeed. We're still in the process of dismantling all these political constructs, these medical
Mhm.
constructs, these education constructs, social security, IRS, all these constructs which have really kept us imprisoned and living in a state of lack. Those are all going to be completely uprooted and recreated. It's probably going to be more digital, more AI expansive, which people are also going to have to broaden their horizon with artificial intelligence. Because if you
Mhm.
notice, in spiritual community, you have one side where it's like, absolutely not, it's the end of humans if this happens. You have another half of the community where it's like, no, this is going to be beautiful, this is going to expand the consciousness, because all artificial intelligence it's a mirror of our collective unified consciousness. So
Mhm.
we are going to make it what it may become through our perspectives. And I happen to just work in the artificial intelligence field, and I see nothing but good coming from it. Is there going to be people that try to weaponize it? Of course there is. There's
Sure.
always going to be something that we're going to have to battle against as spiritual beings. But I will say that humanity is at a preparation phase where now we can handle absolutely any psychological operation that's bestowed upon us from darker forces, or people that uh, want to keep us as this continuous source of loosh.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, I don't have much going on. You know, I'm still trying to find my way. I will never come on a show or my Instagram and pretend to have it all figured out. I always feel like there's margin and room to grow. I will never deny my shadow and deny that I still battle my ego. When somebody completely acts like they've transcended beyond the ego, be very wary, because if you've transcended beyond the ego as a human being on this planet, then what's your purpose of existing? You have nothing more to work on if you've gone to that point. You're here to experience 3 dimensional, 4 dimensional, 5 dimensional constructs and beyond. And one thing I will tell you is don't feel like you need to exist outside the 3 dimensional realm all the time. As somebody who's new to the journey, you're gonna feel like, oh, you know, that's so 3 dimensional. Like I can't do that. That's 3D. That's 3D activities. But one thing that you're gonna realize is you can experience 3 dimensional constructs and have a good time. Like I couldn't go to baseball games. I couldn't go to sporting events. I
Mhm.
struggled watching horror films that I loved to watch in the 1980s. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't watch a movie and feel something just distraught within myself. As you balance though, you start to realize like I'm here to enjoy the 3D experience. I can have a sip of wine without overindulging. I can go to a movie and watch a horror film without feeling like it's going to be the death of me. So you start to get to this recalibration because on your ascension journey, if you haven't yet, at some point you will experience both of your ears ringing. You'll experience, you know,
Mhm.
initially you experience like the left side, the right side. You know, each side is associated with your masculine, your feminine energy. Sometimes it's a buzzing, sometimes it's a high pitch. It just depends what kind of message is coming through from your higher self. You'll have to learn to associate like which side is with my mom, my father, which side is my angels, which is my higher self. Your left side is going to be your feminine, right side is going to be your masculine. Those are always going to be true. And when you start to experience both ears ringing, this is a sign that you're going through a recalibration process where you're starting to acclimate to this new frequency. And as that begins to happen, you start to become more, your equilibrium becomes more centered to you know, to the self that doesn't associate with the material world, doesn't always try to exist in the spiritual world, but is somewhere in between. And that's where the happy spot is as far as being a human.
I agree with that. I was saying that on one of the shows we were talking about this too. It you know it's when you first start doing it, when you first start going through the ascension and your awakening, you start finding your list of all the things that you don't want to do anymore, that you feel are low vibe, and you start throwing all those things away. And then as you start going, through these things more, you realize that it was always under your control. Maybe at first you needed to have the awareness that, this is what these things were, but you come to a place where you start feeling that, I'm human, I'm here to have a human existence, and all of these emotions and all of these frequencies are available to me in this spectrum because I'm supposed to experience them. Sometimes I'm supposed to have this very low vibe thing, and sometimes I'm supposed to have this very high vibe thing, and everything in between, because that's what it means to be a human experiencing humanity. So, it's kind of like to go through that whole thing, but then you can kind of pull back, get more neutral, kind of stand there and realize that, there's going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be, some high frequency stuff and some low frequency stuff. It's all existing in the field. This is where we are. And, it's okay. We're here to experience it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all been familiar with people who literally are saying like things like, I want to escape the matrix. I don't want to be here no more. This planet sucks. This planet is ghetto. And that's where I always remind people, you're not here to escape the matrix. You're here to reshape it. You're here to transform the matrix, and not in the sense of dismissing everything it is to be human. The divine matrix was always perfect. We exist in a false matrix right now. And it is our job to recreate this false matrix into the divine matrix it was. That was always given to us as human beings, to be sovereign, to be free, to live more in unison and more in unity. And as we unify together, that's the reality that we're going to create. Some people exist in a five-dimensional plane all the time. Some people don't. I like to exist in a place where I understand I'm to bring the information I gain from up here, five-dimensional, 670, and bring it back down to earth, bring it back down to the third dimension where I can anchor it, where I can implement, where I can be a living embodiment of a higher cosmic frequency by how I choose my life, by how I interact with individuals. By seeing you, I see myself. When I see myself, I see you. So what I would do to you, I wouldn't do to myself, or vice versa. So you start to really see everything as a mirror into yourself. And it makes it real simple. When I look at my girlfriend, when I was hypersexual and I was sleeping with multiple women, I didn't see myself in other women. But now when I look at my girlfriend, I see myself in her. So now I know if I cheat on her, I'm cheating on myself. If I'm being dishonest with her, I'm dishonest with myself. So I start seeing everything as a way to make me a genuinely better human being without, without procrastinating, but honestly showing by actions that I'm committed, I'm dedicated to evolve and grow. And that's really what it takes to evolve, is to be able to rid yourself of seven sins to move into seven virtues that are
Mhm.
equated to your seven chakras. And as you balance your seven chakras, that's when you start to open yourself up to the eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th chakra, because here on earth alone, we have 12 dimensions. In physics, there's been upward near 30 dimensions that have been, that have been evidently supported through a lot of substantial thesis and papers that we exist in multi dimensions. And what does it mean to be multidimensional here on Earth? That means that you, as an individual, can exist on multiple dimensional consciousness planes of existence. 1 second you can be angry, you can be feeling like you're triggered and you're stuck in your ego. You're experiencing a two-dimensional construct. The next, you're able to allow your higher self to reflect. You're able to develop a resolution, a healthy solution as to why you felt that way. Now you're back up to fourth dimension, five-dimensional existence. So that's what it means to be multidimensional, is that you can exist everywhere at once.
Yeah, no, beautifully said. And I feel like we could keep talking. Like I want to keep going, but
We'll have to have him back.
Yes.
We'll have to definitely invite you back, Anthony, because this is a great
mhm.
conversation and really easy to talk to you. And we so appreciate you being with us.
Yeah,
Of course,
definitely.
of course.
It's shifted
Yeah.
my perspective on a lot of things too, and I have a lot to like integrate and think about too. So I know it'll be the same for a lot of the people that have tuned in as well. So we'll definitely have you back, and we would love to have your lovely girlfriend on as well, because I know she started a
Yeah.
social media account too recently.
She's new to it. I told her when I first met her that she was going to start experiencing like the synchronicities, angle of lights. You may traditionally hear them as angel numbers. I
Mm.
kind of see them as something different than solely just angel numbers. That's something that you're going to actually realize, that it's not just angel numbers; they're correspondence. They are
Mhm.
components to you, as where you're angling yourself as far as you're aligning with certain coordinates universally through mathematics, which allow you to decode these messages through your intuition, not the traditional messages of 111, new beginnings, begin manifesting and setting new intentions, 222, alignment, 333, mind, body, spirit, 444, divine guidance, divine protections, 555, change transformation. So you start looking beyond the traditional numbers and their meanings, and you start to connect. This is something I will advise you to do: is every time you see a synchronicity, you experience a deja vu, something that's kind of like a non-coincidental moment, is connect to your subconscious right before you see that number, connect to the thought right before you see that number, and you will start to develop more understanding of exactly how that number implies currently with where you are in your personal life. It's all about your higher. So these numbers are coming in from your higher self, and it's just a blueprint, to help you elevate further. The more energy that you work with, the more numbers you're going to see. So you're going to notice you go through periods where perhaps the numbers are a little bit stagnant, and then the next day, all of a sudden, the numbers are amplified. You're experiencing an
Mhm.
influx of numbers. Something you'll notice is anytime you see that influx, think about something you priorly may have experienced. Perhaps you finally freed yourself from an ex boyfriend. You finally left that job. You finally said no to somebody. You started to integrate further into your purpose. Now, all of a sudden, you have the influx of numbers because these are vibrations that you're uniquely being able to experience and work with on a more personal level. So they're correspondence to your vibration that allow you to bring manifestation into your reality. But the trick with manifestation is not to feel like you're without and that you're in a lack state of being. If I want to manifest wealth or abundance, or I want to manifest things of that nature, I'm not thinking about money per se. I'm welcome to money because it's an energy exchange. I'm welcome to more opportunities. But at the same time, I'm thinking about abundance and richness that I can exemplify within myself and what it means to be rich within.
I love that.
That was beautifully said. No, that's definitely a great way to kind of end the stream now, but we'll definitely have you on very, very soon whenever you're available. And I can't wait to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone that tuned in with us today. And thank you, Anthony, so much. And we will hold on even after we get off, and we'll see if we can't schedule something so that we can do a follow-up for everyone. We've had a few comments that were saying yes to a second one. So
okay.
thank you, everyone, for joining us.
And don't forget, you can find Anthony on TikTok. What was your username again for TikTok?
On TikTok, it's snowbear616, and then Instagram, it's celestial echo or AB underscore twice, and then my last name AB Campos. So
Okay,
yeah,
perfect. Yeah, you guys definitely got to check it out. And then also, my mom has her website going. Today's the last day to get that little
the
summer
special.
deal.
And then the books, my book and John's book, are available on Amazon. So you guys can check that out too. It's in the ticker at the bottom.
Oh, Victor, we got him at the end. Bye, Victor. But yeah, thank you guys
Victor.
again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next show. And I will try to make it
Yes.
so I'm not working.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Bye, guys. Take care.